Hey, everybody, it's Pastor Daniel on day 10 of our 40 Days of Purpose. And today's guest is Haley. Hi, Haley.
Hi.
So glad you joined us today. I
Yeah,
understand and,
excited.
and, and I know that you and Austin just had a baby. So
Just
how's that
had a
going?
baby. He's good. He's 2.5 weeks old, so all the stuff that comes with that.
Yeah, lots
So
of
much
extra sleep
sleep.
for you.
Yes, definitely.
Yep, free
Free
time.
time.
That's
Mm-hmm.
great. Yeah. So I'm glad that you took, time of your free days to spend with us today. So we're going to look at what the heart of worship is. Day 10 talks about the heart of worship, and it talks about a topic that it may not be too easy for us to kind of accept this. It talks about surrender. That the heart of worship is surrender, and it talks about what keeps us from surrendering to God is sometimes we don't trust Him. It also talks about our limitations and how that kind of leads us
Mm-hmm.
uh, to maybe even want to trust Him at times too. But as you went through the study today, the reading, what stood out to you?
I think there are a lot of really good things in this day, but the one that stood out to me most was near the end whenever it talks about surrender. And the quote is, "There's a moment of surrender. And then there's the practice of surrender, which is moment by moment and lifelong."
Mm,
Um, and I think that just really stood out to me because a lot of the times we can put a lot of emphasis on, the initial decision and the initial moment. Um, but really, just like Paul says, just like Jesus says, we're called to pick up our cross daily and make these decisions, even multiple times a day.
yeah, that actually stood out to me a lot as well because I think of many times throughout the day where I don't surrender. And
Mm-hmm.
if we're not careful, if we find ourselves kind of resisting God and doing our own thing, it can maybe even make us question whether we're a Christian or not.
Yeah. Yeah,
And so
definitely.
it's really good to realize that this is a lifelong thing for us to do, that we're over and over we have to surrender ourselves to God. There was um, an illustration in here that Paul talks about being a living sacrifice,
Mm-hmm.
and the writer here, Rick Warren, talked about if you're a living sacrifice, you can actually choose to crawl off of the
Yeah.
altar. And I'm like, dang, I never even thought of that.
Yeah.
That's really good to realize we could do that. So we have to choose to stay on there on a daily thing. So when you think about how this truth is about a daily surrender, what implications does that have for your life? What changes does that make?
I think sometimes it can seem really overwhelming because there's not just one decision. There's like multiple decisions that you have to make daily. And but I think if we kind of shift our perspective, it can also be very refreshing because um, there are so many different chances for us to make the right choice. And even if we didn't make the right choice last time, um, there's another chance to test our faith and
Yeah.
um, to to prove our true surrender to God. And I think that was a big thing to me.
Yeah. I was thinking about your situation too, and being I mean, this is your third child and they're all young. So I would
Yeah.
imagine you could probably feel like you reach your limitations often
Yep.
throughout
Yes.
the day. And so
Yes.
the empowering thing I thought for us is that when we find ourselves in those limited times
Mhm.
and we surrender to the Lord, it puts us in connection with God to where we now have been sourced and empowered by His limitless power.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's an encouraging thing for us to go through, is like when we reach our limitations, that's the time for us to surrender to the Lord and let Him refresh our souls. So you're going to have lots of opportunities today.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely.
Yeah. Do you have any closing words of encouragement for us?
I think that, like you mentioned at the beginning, surrender can have kind of a negative connotation, but it really just is so inspiring. There's a section in the book where it talks about when we truly surrender, that really just shows our true personality and allows us to be free to be ourselves. And I think that that's so true that,
Mm.
being surrendered to God really um, establishes our true identity and true personality.
Yeah, I think I'll close with this too. It goes right along with what you just said. It says, "Don't be afraid," because we think of giving our control to Jesus. It
Hmm.
says, "Don't be afraid because nothing under His control will ever be out of control,"
Yeah.
and that's really good for us to hear. So
Yeah.
today's closing verse is Romans chapter 6, verse 13, and it says, "Surrender your entire being to Him to be used for righteous purposes." So Haley, thanks so much for being here today. You're a
Yay.
pleasure to
Thank
interview and a good friend. So be blessed.
you too.
And for everyone
Bye.
else, we will see you next time. Bye.
See ya.